Welcome back to Pod Save the World. This is Tommy Vitor. I was thinking about calling listeners worldos. I'm getting some nods from the crew in the back. I don't know that that's going to stick. I don't know that anyone wants to be called a worldo or PSD dubs. No, we're going to go with worldos. Anyway, the topic today is technology and privacy and national security. Thanks to Facebook, these issues have exploded into the consciousness, and we're talking about how much data these companies are collecting on us, how much they're tracking our movements, our texts, our phone calls. It is frightening stuff. So we talked through all the specifics, how you can protect yourself. My guest today is Nick Thompson. Nick is the editor-in-chief at Wired. He has written extensively about politics, policy, the law, and technology. And now, thanks to our good friends at Facebook, those areas are colliding in a very public, very messy way. So Nick, thank you so much for being here to help me sort this out as a almost Luddite.
All right. Thank you, Tommy. I'm delighted to be here.
Okay. So the term national security it's like overly broad and overused. But I want people to understand that there are personal and national security implications to these issues. For all the talk of like Russian interference or government surveillance, we're all a lot more likely to get hacked by a non-state actor or to willingly hand over NSA-like volumes of information about ourselves to corporations. So my goal today, I think, is to help people get what's happening, how they can protect themselves, and then frighten them about the next scary technology-induced debates. So let's start with Facebook. You guys wrote an incredible cover piece on the last 2 years at Facebook that everyone should read. And since that piece, reports that Trump's political data and targeting firm Cambridge Analytica used Facebook to unethically collect data on more than 50 million people have woken up a lot of people, including Congress, to their data collection and privacy practices. And I think, folks outside of Silicon Valley were surprised not only by how much data they collect, but also by how much you can learn from that data. Can you start by just talking a bit about what Facebook is or was collecting and what elements of that collection might surprise people?
Yeah, so Facebook's business model is to collect as much information about you as possible and then to use that information to sell you targeted ads. And it's one of the most effective advertising mechanisms that's ever been built by mankind, right? And that's why Mark Zuckerberg has turned this into a massive, powerful business. And people don't understand that, right? There's a real disconnect between what we think of Facebook doing, which is connecting us to our friends in high school, being the source of information, being a place we talk to people about whatever we talk to them about, and what it's actually doing, which is collecting as much data about you as possible and then selling you ads. So it's been a real surprise as people have started to understand this, as they started to look at the privacy settings, as they started to look at what Facebook actually collects. So Facebook has just launched this feature where you can download your data, and so I did that this morning. And what does Facebook have on me? Well, they have a list of every IP address I've ever used to log into Facebook, which is actually a really good data set of where I've been at every moment of my life where I've logged into Facebook. They have, say again?
I said Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's crazy. So they have a list of all my IP addresses. They have a list of, of course, everything I've ever posted, all of my contacts, continuous access to my address book, which I've authorized. And then they have, incredibly complex lists of my interests, the advertisers I've interacted with, the kinds of advertisements they'd like me to see, and that's all stored, which isn't that surprising. Mm-hmm. But the next level of data, which I think does surprise people, is when they realize that Facebook isn't just collecting information about everything you do on the platform, they're also collecting information from around the web, right? Because people have Facebook pixels, Facebook logins on all kinds of sites. Mm-hmm. They buy information from data brokers. And then they also collect as much information as they can from other apps. So the example that really struck people is on Android phones, if you opted in during a certain period of time, it's no longer possible, they were tracking every phone number you called and how long those calls lasted, which you can understand why, right? They're trying to recommend friends to you, and if they can see who you're actually talking to, they can do it more efficiently. But it starts to weird people out when you realize, oh, they're not just collecting everything that you do on Facebook. It's actually outside of Facebook that they're getting stuff to.
Yeah. That is weird. Well, one of your reporters at Wired wrote a great piece about how to read your Facebook data, and was deeply offended that she was lumped into categories like goth subculture, middle class, and fan of Harper's. I thought that was a really funny piece.
I don't know if she was too embarrassed that she was listed as goth. I think that was kind of a point of pride in the office. It was kind of hilarious and awesome.
But it's interesting, right? I mean, like, your piece about Facebook's 2 years in the barrel, they know damn well how impressive and sophisticated an advertising company they've built, which I think is why people like me and others were sort of stunned and pissed off at when Mark Zuckerberg initially after the election said it was absurd to assume that somehow Facebook could influence votes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a real, it's one of the tensions that has continued to come up in the last 2 years where they say, well, no, we couldn't have swung the election, or no, it was just a small factor. But simultaneously, when they sell their products to advertisers, we have this incredible power, we have this incredible influence. And it's clearly both, right? It's clearly that they did have a lot of influence. They were hugely beneficial to Trump. Trump probably used the platform better. Mm-hmm. The underlying algorithm of Facebook, which rewards emotion and outrage, clearly benefited Trump much more than it benefited Hillary Clinton. So there are 100 factors that go into the way they help Trump, but it's also not the only factor. And then later, of course, yes, it's not. They've been dealing with the aftermath of Trump's victory for the last 2 years, which is really what my story was. And so they've been trying to walk the line between we're not totally responsible for this, or we're only partly responsible for this, but also we're going to make a lot of changes because of what's happened.
Right. And I think if you and I right now were at a bar and we were having an off-the-record drink with someone at Facebook, their response would basically be, look, we dealt with the Cambridge Analytica problem 4 years ago by limiting the way data can be collected by these third-party apps, which is how Cambridge Analytica got the data. They were supposed to delete that data. They lied to Facebook and retained it, but Facebook, the company, had already made the fix. And I think on the broader privacy issue, the Facebook staffer would say to us, you guys all agreed to these terms and conditions, and you love the ease and functionality those conditions enable. We don't do anything differently than any other free site. You might hate us because our product is lame, and we got wrapped up in a fight about 2016, but like Google has just as much, if not more, data about you. It's that you just don't feel self-loathing when you Google something. Is that right and fair, do you think?
Yeah, I think that is the argument they would make, and it's not a fallacious argument, right? I mean, what's so interesting about this is that what Cambridge Analytica did wasn't really entirely Facebook's fault, because Cambridge Analytica basically stole the data or got the data in an inappropriate way, right? It's kind of like Facebook left the door unlocked and Cambridge Analytica came in and robbed them. So you can kind of blame Facebook a little bit for what happened, but really you should blame Cambridge Analytica more. So Facebook feels like they're getting hit too hard for this, right? That the punishment doesn't fit the crime. They realize that it was a mistake to have the sort of the open privacy policies in 2013, 2014 that they've now closed up. They realized they should have been more vigilant when they first learned about what Cambridge Analytica had done, for Ted Cruz. They realized those things, but they also feel like the backlash is too much. But on the other hand, this is, people didn't give a damn about privacy for 10 years when there were all kinds of privacy problems. And I think kind of the frustration with the way privacy works on the internet today has just exploded. It's like it's been bottled up for 10 years, and now this just happened to be the moment that uncorked it. So I think that's what's happening. So in a way, Facebook is right.
Yeah.
Punishment doesn't fit the crime.
Yeah.
On the other hand, this has been going on forever. This is what did it.
Right. And so, the reason I wanted to talk about this stuff on my foreign policy show is because I feel like this is the follow-on conversation that we probably should have had immediately after the Snowden revelations, but just didn't, because we just didn't get there. Because for all the talk and outrage about Snowden and surveillance, we know that these companies can use your online activity to figure out your sexuality, your political views. They know who you texted. They know when you texted them. They know your location data down to the foot. Like, forget about tapping phones.
Yeah.
There's literally a fucking microphone in your pocket at all times. is it too late to fix this? Like, have we given up the store already, or are there things people can do to erase their online footprint or reduce the kind of the data we give up in the future without deleting Facebook and logging off forever?
Yeah, so there are lots of things you can and should do, right? You can be vigilant about your privacy settings. You can go in, you can delete your information from Facebook. You can go and check and see all the websites that have gotten your email address, right? You can be vigilant and reduce the amount of information that's spread about you. And that's useful and that's smart, and you should do that. The most important thing is going to be for these companies to change the way they operate. And we've seen big changes at Facebook in the last 2 weeks, and creating a privacy dashboard, making it much easier to adjust your settings. And so making it much clearer in the future how you can deal with these issues of privacy. So the onus is on us, but the onus is also on all of these companies. And my hope is that the big ones and small ones and the ones that will be big have a different approach to privacy in the future.
Mm-hmm. Do you, like, it seems to me like there are probably a lot of staffers that are not in senior management at Facebook, but rank and file, that probably are pretty damn upset about not just 2016, but sort of the way the company is now viewed. But management, as they always are, has moved slowly. They've been recalcitrant. They've seemed to be unwilling to give up information quickly. Do you think that's going to change? Do you think like Mark Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg will ultimately get before a committee and start answering tough questions, or is that going to be something they resist until they are dragged there?
Yeah, that's super interesting on a couple levels. The first part, about the young engineers at Facebook, I really believe that the pressure point on Facebook, there are a couple of pressure points on Facebook, right? There's media coverage, there's potential congressional regulation, but the real pressure point, the thing that Facebook really worries about, is young engineers leaving and not wanting to be working at Facebook and not being proud of working at Facebook, and so leaving to go to Snapchat, right? Because engineers are so hard to find, even when you have all the money in the world like Facebook. And so one of the themes that Fred Vogelstein and I looked at in our piece was, when Zuckerberg has an all hands, and this was true at the one he did this recently, and then, most poignantly probably right before Thanksgiving of the past year, he's been apologizing and saying to them, I know it's hard now to go home to your families and say you work at Facebook. It used to be the coolest thing in the world. And so they're really worried that working at Facebook will become kind of like what working at Goldman Sachs used to be, 9 years ago. And that is an existential deep fear for Zuckerberg, for Sandberg. I mean, I assume it is for all of them, because that's what really hurts.
Right.
So, yes, that's interesting. That's important. On the testimony stuff, I interviewed Zuckerberg last week. I asked him whether he was going to testify, and he gave kind of a careful answer about, I will if I'm the most informed person at the company. And the proper answer is just yes.
Right.
Like, now is the moment. There's pressure to do it. Let's go do it. So I think that, to your question, he will definitely go testify. He certainly should go testify. Sandberg should go testify, too. Her capacity to avoid the heat during this shows utter tactical brilliance.
Yes, agreed.
Like how she has somehow been able to get through this without any mud on her shoes is amazing.
Yeah.
Without too much mud on her shoes. So, yeah, I'll be very interested to see what happens there.